Ikuibu. Come on into the house. Nini, welcome. I'm Queen Mother Imaku. It's my pleasure to be here again with you with another brief message. I just did a video regarding the importance of our taking responsibility for teaching our young people Black History Month and taking ownership over it and being the custodians over our own narrative and our own history and culture as we should be. Okay, so now here's the next step. Now, many of you all know that I am a Kemetic elder high priestess. I'm a queen mother. The title came from being instilled through the Kemetic tradition. Well, for those of you who don't know, what is Kemetic? Kemetic. Kemet, start there. Kemet was the original name of ancient Egypt. The Greeks later called it Egyptos, which became Egypt. Kemet means land of the black. Kem means black. Now, there's a lot of fuss and disbelief regarding the fact that ancient Egypt was populated by people who look like me. And the artwork has been left behind to support it. And, varying shades of Black folks, but indeed Black. Kem means Black, like I said, but there are those who are insisting, oh no, they were just talking about the black silt that came up every year when the flood would take place. The silt was at the bottom of the Hapi or the Nile River. And okay, there's truth in that. There was a black silt that was very, very rich in minerals and that helped the soil when the soil became irrigated from the flood and made it much easier for the people in Kemet to plant and to grow crops. Okay, but how about the fact that the people of Kemet refer to themselves as Kememu, which means the Black people? Okay, listen, just because the fact that a lot of the statues and various other collections of artwork have literally been painted over, and that started happening with the Greek and Roman invasions. And again, we're talking about history here. It does not mean that by whitewashing the artwork that it changes the true history. Now, one of the reasons I'm sharing this right now also is because there are a lot of people who are believing the lie that ancient Kemet was not Black for thousands of years. And then we have folks who are in the ATR communities, the African traditional religious communities, who insist, oh, the Kemites, they're not our ancestors. We have no DNA with them. We have no connection with them. Do you know people are finding out that they have direct blood relations with many of the mummified remains that have been found and tested? And not only that, I was just listening the other day to Professor Small talking about the fact that people are not staying on top of our history and knowing what happened to the Kemites after Kemet fell. When the invasions took place, people were forcibly removed. They were pushed out or they elected to leave. And so our ancestors traveled throughout the motherland. But also, people traveled up to the motherland too. I'm sorry, up to Kemet too, because, trade routes and also the splendor that people heard about Kemet, its magnificence. And look at the architecture that has influenced the world. When you go to the Washington Monument in DC, you're seeing a Teken, and that was based on Kemet. The entire layout of DC was based on ancient Kemet. So many, many other things. Kemet was the glittering light that was on the hill. Kemetic culture taught civilization to so many people, and well, the world over, really. When people came, they actually often felt intimidated. And when the Greeks arrived, because they thought that they were the stuff, they wanted to study with the Kemetic priesthood. They discovered that they were not up to snuff. They had to reapproach the Kemetic priesthood 3 times before they were accepted, because they were considered, as it was written, they were considered to be like babies. So while they were great intellectuals where they came from, they came up against the Kemites and found out a whole different story. And so there's a lot of Kemetic influence in the Greek culture, Judaic culture, Roman culture, okay? And in fact, when you go to the Vatican, or you'll find that there's a huge collection that they have of Kemetic artifacts. Why is that? Well, because the last of the Kemetic priests taught Romans who came in to study with them. And then the Romans basically grabbed what they wanted to in terms of their understanding of the knowledge and also of the practices and put it in the Vatican. They killed the last of the remaining priests, as it is recounted. And so when you go to a Catholic service, you're seeing largely a Kemetic service. The beliefs that are there with the saints, we call them Necheru or Orche, okay? Um, if you look at what's used with the censer for the incense and all of that, that goes back to ancient Kemet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a lot of my time researching to see the correlations and also the origins of language that exists. Do you know if there's a word that you can really see where the word voodoo comes from? So many others, finding the origins. And the biggest thing is that because of the teachings that have come out of, and this is not knocking anybody, but this is just talking truth, the teachings that have come out of the Christian church about ancient Kemet, the ancient Egyptians, makes it very difficult for people to really want to delve in, because there is a preconceived notion right off the top that we must be some evil jokers. It's not the truth. Actually, the Kemetic faith is an extremely beautiful religion. It's a beautiful practice. I know the Hotepers and with they call them, with the Ankhs and the Hotepers. I know, listen, they've jacked up our reputation as well. The people out there who are cutting up and making fools of themselves and try to come across as though this is their belief system, they ain't in the faith. They're just not. Because otherwise they wouldn't be saying a lot of the foolish stuff that they were saying, and some continue to say. They would not be cussing the way that they do on these videos. I mean, to be able to say Hotep, a lot of people don't even realize it means peace, but at a cost. Giving up something sacrificial. It's not just, peace and blessings, Hotep, Hetep, Hetepu. No, there's a lot more to it. Along with what we call living the culture. Living the culture. That means that you understand that you carry yourself a certain way. That means that you have mindfulness. Mindfulness practices started in ancient Kemet. This means that you understand that there is mindfulness that you must have in the way that you speak, the way that you conduct yourself. This means you immerse yourself in the sacred writings. Listen, a lot of the things that you see in the Bible came from ancient Kemetic writing, from the sage writers who wrote thousands of years before the existence of what became a concrete Bible. They borrowed liberally from the Bible, especially the book of Psalms. You'll find that there are a lot of parallels to the book of Amenemope, also known as um, um, yes, Ankh Amenhotep. Um, and it goes on and on and on. The concept of baptism, the concept of being born again. Listen, this is why it's important to study and to have an understanding of exactly what is true. And you'll find out from what? Study. I always suggest for people to do their research, ask questions, open themselves up. And it doesn't mean you have to convert to becoming Kemetic, but it does give you an historic perspective on the power and majesty that came out of Kemet. Was it a perfect society? No, not at all. But it did set the framework for something close to a manageable working society, something that it is, was in some ways very peaceful. And yes, they had their share of problems. In fact, there are prophecies that were written that affect today, as far as government falling, are people becoming disconnected. All this was written about back then. You find out from study. The term savior, Kemetic, Jesus or Jesus, Kemetic. And yes, the J sound did exist back then. You say Ankuja Seneb, right? Uja. All right. There's so many urban myths that are going around that are just not true. And because people just believe and repeat what they hear instead of looking it up and finding out for themselves. Kemetic culture and history are Black culture and history. This is not taking away from the history that happened after the Blacks were pushed out, forced out, and also just left. This is not discounting the history after the invasions and the Greco-Roman period and all of that. That's history as well. But even that is based on the original Black culture and history that had been established prior to the invasions. Okay? Don't be afraid to find out the truth. There's power in the truth. If you have any more questions regarding the Kemetic faith, if you are of another faith and you have been led to believe that anyone practicing the Kemetic faith, or you hear anything about the ancient Egyptians that is just evil, then I encourage you to reach out. Listen, I belong to a number of interfaith groups where I'm usually the only, well, no, always, the only person of Kemetic faith, sometimes the only person who is there representing the African traditional religions. And yeah, I've had to have some conversations with folks who, as we begin to pray, because with many of them, they're prayer lines, right? And so many of them start praying and thank God we're not like those evil Egyptians. And, afterwards I have to say, excuse me, I don't knock your faith. Please don't knock mine. In fact, your religion came out of mine. It takes a lot of patience to educate people. A lot. Sometimes I have to step back and take a little break. But knowing that people are more willing to learn makes it all worthwhile. When people have a chance to really hear the beauty of the scriptures, when they hear the beauty of the philosophies, they hear the beauty of the history itself, and understand that it's not anything to be afraid of. It is who we are. It is us. Okay? And the effect that Kemetic culture had was one that was global. Global. They were mariners, and so they traveled the world. And you find their footprint, the footprint of the ancient Kemites all over the world. Okay, so listen, if you have any more questions, then please reach out, even in finding out about what this is. This is an Ankh. The original cross, although as you see, it's not a cross, and the cross means death, and this symbol means life. How about that? Okay. And also other aspects. Do you know that they used cowrie shells in ancient Kemet as well as many places in the motherland, but people a lot of times don't know that. And yes, there is a word for it, and I know that because I did the research. Okay. Um, but if you want to find out any more, and also how Kemetic culture had an influence over Yoruba culture, whether you're talking about Isheshe, whether you're talking about Umbanda, whether you're talking about, and by the way, there's a big wave in Brazil with folks wanting to know more about quote unquote Egyptology because they understand that there is a connection, and there is. In fact, do you know that they have a um, an Orisha that is connected to ancient Kemet? Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually two. So yeah, there is an excitement in people coming to understand and find out that there are connections. I was starting to say with Orisha culture, okay, with Vodun, with your Oginin culture, Akan. Uh, uh, Listen, the influence has been tremendous. So I welcome you. You can come and study with me. You can take online classes that are available, and you can have a consultation if you just want to have a conversation, okay? It's better to know than to be afraid, okay? Own your history, know your history, know yourself. We say Reki im ebi, which means I know myself. Now, many people are familiar with the expression know thyself. The term more precisely, Reki im ebi, I know myself. Make sure that you are constantly in touch with who you truly, truly are. Keep forgetting to turn off my phone. All right. Well, I'm hoping that everybody has a wonderful day. It's almost tomorrow here. And for whenever you see this, I wish you much love, Merea. And then also Heri, which means to be, Heri means to be at peace. Teni means to be accountable. Jebewi, do you see this? This came from Kemet. It's the original peace sign. It also means to extend mercy and to have compassion. Remember also to apply it to yourself in the correct circumstances and also in applying it to others. This is a lot of weight with this. Who you extend mercy and compassion to is pretty big deal, okay? But also remember to love yourself. Jess, I love myself. All right. Have a wonderful evening. In light and love.